Hello and welcome to the Mysticast, where you join Jack Stafford and Deborah Littleboy, members of the Aetherius Society, the cosmic religion for the Aquarian Age, as we break down the barriers between religion, science, metaphysics, mysticism, all of which are really only aspects of the self-same quest for truth. Please note this is an independent program, not produced or fact-checked by the Aetherius Society. Today, our guest is Heinz Gugger. Hi Heinz, how you doing?
Hello, how are you, Jack?
I'm very well, thank you. What an impressive background. Let's just start with that.
Thank you.
That's Mr. Radionics right there.
Yeah, it's a part of the office, and everything grows and it just expands. So now after our daughter moved out, we took her room as well. So that is full of radionics as well. So it's just, if you come into this life, you never think I'm going to be a radionics practitioner. It grows into it. And then, when you see the results and when you see how things work, then it's basically a given that it just grows naturally.
I mean, it was almost out of necessity, because everything I did in subtle energy work, from dowsing and radionics, I learned on a farm. We lived in the States for a long time, and we had the 2 kids in the States, and then we moved to Australia and we had a persimmon farm. And, the traditional farming is just what they teach you in school, and it's putting more chemicals on, and that didn't work for us. So we moved into organic and biodynamics. And one of my mentors, he always, looked at subtle energy, because it's not just farming as we know, putting fertilizer on and biology, it's also the energetic side. So you learn quickly that the energetics, not just in farm, but also in humans, has a big impact, because it's not just living one plane, so we have problems with bats and birds. So during the day, we had all the little lorikeets, these are little parrots, on the fruit, and they just destroy the fruit. And then at night we had the fruit bats. And, the way farmers work this, they just go out and they just give him a giddy up with some lead, and they shoot him. But you're never going to win. So that's not an idea. That's not the way farming should work. And so my mentor told me to look into radionics. And at that time, that was 20 years ago, there was nobody out there who was teaching this or coming forward. So it was a little bit of push, it started around 1900. There was a little bit of push. There was a little bit in agriculture as well. But, especially in the States, they had actually a radionics agriculture center. But that overnight got shut down one day. That didn't exist anymore after they had some success with controlling pests. And so I just had to do experiment and try things. And I started off with a little instrument, a used one. And I did a lot of mistakes too. So for me, the introduction to radionics and energy was through creating a field for these birds or for these animals, so they're not welcomed here anymore. And I remember one time where I just go like, that must really, really good, using subtle energies to put a frequency onto the paddock. And the next morning when I got up there, instead of they're all disappearing, I think I had 1 million birds in my paddock, because whatever I did, it did not work. That they actually leave, they actually came in. So that was also a good sign that this is working. So over the last 20 years, I work with a lot of farmers where, for pest control, disease control, or weed control as well. And it's not just like a magic bullet where this will fix everything. You still have to do your management. You still have to look at, the environment and, what's going on. But it's a really good tool to analyze. And then you can actually make much more better informed decision. And everything has to exist in the 3rd dimension here, it has to exist in the energetic field. So what we see sometimes here is a symptom. And the symptom, the root cause, wherever that is not here on the dimension. The root cause could be everywhere else. So when we look at like 2-legged animals, it can be an emotional, it can be in the physical, mental, spiritual field, or in the soul field. So when you make changes in the energetic field, that sometimes will then switch and changes the information in the physical, and the symptoms usually then disappear. And so this is looking at the bigger picture instead of just honing in and says, oh, this is a symptom, let's work on your knee. It is actually in an energetic field where it could be also from the past, present, and future. So it's not like just one approach. It's so multi-dimensional that it's not just like, one thing fixes everything.
Well, that ties in perfectly with the teachings of the Aetherius Society that first things manifest energetically, and secondly in the physical. You have illness, for example, it's in the aura, and then it translates into the physical body.
Yeah. And a lot of times when we do work with radionics, and I like radionics because it's not just you just put something out what you think. It's almost like you follow a script, but everybody has to also in get their intuitive side as well in. But for example, you can analyze your system. So we do that a lot for animals as well, where what is your lung, your kidney, your spleen. And so it almost takes time and research to do this before you actually work something. So it's not just like guessing what it is. There's actually a lot of research behind to find out what is the root cause. And then when we talk about radionics, there's different instruments out there, but the one we use is a Hieronymus style system. So it has 2 banks. So it's like a radio station. So when that radio station we dial into is a reception, then that means everything runs properly. If we then dial into a radio station and you hear a static, that means that radio station, that could be your auric field, that could be your chakra, that could be your poison, could be your toxins, is out of balance. So that means we have to reset that. So it really takes a lot of time analyzing to find out where is it, is it, and everything is connected. So, you look at the physical with the energetic side as well.
Do you have an example of a piece of equipment you could just pull on screen?
They're quite large instruments, and you can see in the back.
So they're not, people might be confusing it with radio waves. You're not transmitting radio waves. What is the difference between radionics and for the beginner? What's the difference?
Right. So radio waves, you need antennas and you need electricity to actually broadcast over a long distance. What we use a scalar waves design system. So that came out originally from Nikola Tesla, and he developed a Tesla coil. And maybe I'll just grab one from here. And so if I hold this up, you can see maybe I'll put a little bit of sticky things on. You see there's a little coil in here.
Oh, yeah.
So a Tesla coil is, which is a bifilar coil, he developed that, and that's what he was able to actually attract energy. And he created free energy out of this. And when you can Google that as well. There's a lot of research on scalar as well. And it's suppressed quite a bit because Maxwell, 1831, he actually found out that scalar exists. But because nobody can measure it, there's no movement of electrons, it got dismissed. So, and science wants to prove stuff, but they can't. And so what they did, they dismissed that. But that a lot of books are written about it, but they're not publicly really available, that everything in the energetic field you can work. So there are tools out there like this. There's Spooky out there, or which creates Hertz frequency. That's a different frequency. But we use scalar, and scalar is basically information. So it doesn't transfer the energetic like we have on a electrical field. It cancels that out, but it takes the energetic. So electromagnetic field, you always need to have 2 sides. And the whole universe works always in like a polarity. You got the right brain, you got a left brain, you got your left artery and your right artery, you got day and night. Everything creates itself out of motion, out of duality. And so when you look at some scalar wave, they start one way, they go in, and they never have a gap. They come back out exactly the same distances apart. So the geometry loops around itself and creates a field which carries the information. And through this, we actually then send this information all over the world, and it's quicker than the speed of light. And in radionics, it's really the practitioners, because do we really need these tools? No, not really. Everybody is a scalar broadcaster because we have right and left brain. And as soon as you actually have an intent, it's already manifesting. And 10 years ago, these energies really traveled, quite slow. But now in this time, in 2023 and going forward, it is going very, very quick. You can just have an intent or a thought or an emotion behind it, and it broadcasts. So you could think of somebody and they're already feeling it. They already call you. And that can go good and bad. Because if you get up in the morning and you just go like, oh my God, I just spilled my coffee and what else can go wrong? You just broadcast your day that this and this and this will prove to you that, okay, what else can go wrong? Here it is. Your car won't start and you got a flat tire and this won't work and this won't work. So we don't need these tools. We can do it ourselves. But the issue most people have is over the last, thousands of years, we don't trust ourselves. And how long can you really, really hold an intent, right? Maybe after 10 seconds, you're in that state, your emotions work, you're fully vibrating resonating at the beautiful outcome. But for how long can you hold that intent? Maybe 10 seconds. And after that, you think what's for lunch and what's for dinner. So these tools are really good. Whatever you have as an intent, you put this on and it just basically holds that energy. But what it does, it also acts octaves and harmonics to it. So, it's like when you listen to a symphony, when your intent itself has maybe the violin out of a symphony. But with tools like this, you create a whole symphony, you turn this on, and then you can walk away and do your daily things. Go
well,
pay bills.
Let me just bring in Deborah here, because I think she's really seeing some synchronicities between your teachings and the societies.
Yeah, what really resonated with me was the fact that our body is this receiver and transmitter, and yet over the years, over the generations, we've lost the ability. And I think you said that we became unconfident, but I think what more than that, we thought wrong thoughts, not realizing that they were real things, which then bent our bodies out of shape. And then down the generations, our bodies actually don't work so well as receivers and transmitters. And Dr. King basically said that our body was this transmitter and receiver, but we have to retune it. And the first part, the most important part, is concentration, which of course is what you've just said, Heinz. You have to concentrate. Unless you can concentrate purely on one thing, then you're not going to get the precise outcome that you're going for. And Dr. King, as a master of yoga, said that you have to really be able to concentrate on a keyhole or something equally as boring for 6, 7, 8 hours before you become really effective. And so when I'm listening to you and I'm understanding, yes, we got, as Tesla had, we can actually manufacture tools to bypass our inadequacies. It makes perfect sense. And before I close myself down, when I looked at Tesla's coil, in my mind's eye, what I saw was a radionic instrument that Dr. King had used to send energies through seawater to the psychic centers of Earth. And the coil that he used, if you took what you'd shown me there and you extended it, a bit like a slinky, if you want, but you extended it, that the coil was inside of a pyramid, but it was that sort of that perfect in and out of the apex point, which in what you showed, of course, was the center. If you'd pulled up from the center, that's what I would have seen. So I think what I'm saying is that, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. and I'm really excited that you've made a practical application of it to make it unfavorable for the parakeets to eat your fruit, and for the fruit bats to go find somewhere else to go. That's really useful, except of course they might get hungry. But hey, so that's a problem for down the line. But so yes, anyway, so I'll back off, Jack. But yeah, I'm finding my head is really nodding. This is exciting stuff. It needs to get out there more. I mean, it's been around for a while. It needs to be shown to the world. So thank you,
Heinz's
Heinz.
new book, Dare to Manifest. Maybe you could tell us a bit about that, Heinz.
Yeah, that came actually out. Before I just continue, Deborah, one thing I always do, I teach dowsing and radionics, right? And every time we work on something, and it doesn't matter what it is, right? We always put that in, and that's the way we live. It always is this for the benefit of all and detriment of none. So whatever we do, we're not hurting anybody, and it's for the benefit of all. Like, let's say we work on weather patterns, right? So let's say storms come in, or we have not enough rain at the moment. So if you put this energy out for attracting rain, it's always for the benefit of all and detriment of none. So that means we're not hurting anybody during the whole process. Not that somebody gets all the rain and somebody doesn't get any rain, or somebody gets a flood and somebody, don't get any rain. So it's not that we just like, okay, this is us and this is our ego. We always hand it over to source as well and says, all right, whatever needs to happen. So there's always that safety switch built in that, if people start manifesting and they go like, look, my car broke down, I need $20,000. It's not that, the grandma dies and you get inheritance. This is not the key. The $20,000 will come in a way that you don't need to worry about it, but it will be here, but you're not harming anybody. So when we do this with the bats and the birds as well, it's not that we're killing them. That's the radionics is not about this. It is setting up patterns, life force pattern, which enhances the plants, enhances the people. But on the other hand, we can use it to also decrease life force pattern, where we say, like for weeds, because we got big farms, that have 20, 30,000 hectares. They're not going out there and doing weed, and some of them are organic, they can't spray, but we set a pattern up that the weeds can take over the land. So basically, they're not welcomed. So they're not going to go disappearing tomorrow. It takes, 2-3 years, and this is Rudolf Steiner, where we also integrate that using his practices when we do biodynamic peppering. We just set a pattern in place that, okay, in 2-3 years, they're just going to wither away. And then, we got follow-up grasses, which are more beneficial native grasses for the native wildlife and for animals. So
would you say you pray into the machine then, Heinz?
What we do is
in that?
The intention, right? I mean, intention and praying is basically, for me, very much similar, right?
Yeah.
But what we did with the book is, it comes out of the 20 years of teaching, which I did. And this is a guidebook, and we created because not everybody wants to do radionics. You need to have a time, you have to commit to it, you have to purchase an instrument. So we designed, it's called a quantum broadcaster. So it works exactly like radionics. It has a witness. So it starts off with a witness. That means who it is. Is it a land? Is it an animal? Is it a person? Is it, an area? Is it a situation? And then we also write an intent. That's probably one of the most important things to do, is an intent. And we structured it in 4 different patterns. The first one is basically you stop and reduce whatever you don't like to see. And that doesn't come from fear. It's not like fear-based, oh, I don't want this, I don't want this. It's basically like when you go onto a building site, what you do first is, okay, you look at the building site, you go, okay, I need to, put a road in here, I put a retaining wall in here, or I stop traffic and I build something here. So we have a safe environment to work. And that's what we do first. We eliminate, we stop, halt, or reduce whatever the impact could be. And when you write this down, that anchors it. Your handwriting puts this into the system that it is basically this is like your pizza order, right? You go and you place exactly what you like to have. That's the second part. The second part is not it should, it could, or it would be. The second part is the way it is. So if you manifest something, like, with the bats, I'm not writing, they could move, or they should. This is like, they're gone. They're outside my boundaries, but they find plenty of food in the native forest and all this stuff. And so that's the second part. After we reduce and hold, the second part is the way it is. And sometimes, people don't even know what they really desire. If they say, I want, that comes from lack, because they don't have it yet. So you really want to make sure that this is what you desire. And we had one lady in Singapore, she told me it took her 2 weeks to find out, how does the relationship with my daughter needs to look like? She said, I want a relationship with my daughter. Well, how does this need to look like? And so people start thinking, and quantum physics tells us that when you observe, it's already start happening. So the more time you have, take this half an hour, sit down there and really write down the way it needs to be. Is it for a new job? Is it for attracting? Is it a relationship? And so that takes a bit of time. The third paragraph is, how do you feel when this happens, when this comes through? So you write down the emotions you feel when this is happening, when this comes through, that I'm full of gratitude, I'm smiling, I'm happy, I'm over the moon, And then the fourth paragraph is then, this or something better for the benefit of all and detriment of none, thy will be done in deep gratitude. So this is a safety switch, because if something goes wrong, it's not going to happen, because the source will basically not allow that something detrimental happens. And I wrote this or something better because we think we want to look at, growing spiritually, whatever, and you got a plan, but maybe there's actually a better plan in store for you. And that happens so many times, especially when people attract a job. They got a job, and then, or we just had a lady, she got called into the office, and she said, she was a little bit afraid. She says, do I get fired? Because all the bosses were sitting there. And then she said, no, we want to give you promotion. So you're going to be department head, leader of the department. And she remembered, she put an intent out for team leader. So she just, instead of team leader, she got department head. So that means this or something better. So basically, we're working in the universal law. We are not pushing things down and says this has to happen. It will happen, and sometimes better than what we think it can happen. You meet the right people at the right time, and the energy, let the energy work for you. So what you do, you really you take your intent, and you let that outsource. You let the universe take care of that. And I think we lost that. We always think, we need to control everything. But this is the same. I always compare it when you go and you order a pizza. And so you order the pizza and you you place your order, right? So that's exactly how the order needs to be. Now, what happens if you go change the order once? Probably not much, because they might say, oh yeah, we change it. But what happens if you go back and you change it 3, 4, 5 times? They might say, you know what, you come back when you actually know what you want. We can't make you the pizza when you always change your order. And that's why most people go wrong when they manifest. They have an idea and they always look at it. They always change it. Is it here yet? Why is it not coming? Well, and so even when they put vision boards up, and every time they look at the vision board, they see something else. So that frequency always moves a tiny bit up and down or to the left, so it can't manifest. But with these tools, when we do quantum broadcaster, which is also part of the book, and radionics, we place the order exactly the way we like to have it, and then we forget about it. And everybody probably had cases where they go like, I need this, I want this, and they were so eager to get that. I need it, until they basically say, you know what, I don't think that is working. And then it shows up, because they're no longer emotionally attached to it and in that need phase, until they let go. And then you get your pizza back after you basically wait and let the source do the job.
Yeah, can I jump in?
Go ahead.
Heinz, you've just described our Operation Prayer Power, which for the people that are watching this and for yourself, it's a radionic battery that was designed by Dr. King for devic stabilization. So in other words, to send out energies to crisis situations, to war situations, to balance the energies. And it's done through intention. It's done through prayer. It's done through opening your heart with intention, opening up the chakras in the palms of your hands, concentrating on this tiny aperture in the battery, and chanting sacred mantra. So there's a room full of people doing that. So maybe we've got 20, 30 people, all with that intention of sending pure energy from source through and out into the battery. But to potentize that, we also have some sacred prayers given to us through Dr. King by the Master Jesus, which are perfectly balanced. And so we have prayers, like if you want people that have practiced to balance prayers, and they will put their hand in front of the aperture of the battery and use the other hand as an antenna. We're told that little finger actually is the human antenna. So that goes up to bring the energy through. And the rest of the mantra team all concentrate on the hand, on the back of the hand. And we're told to have pure intention, let go of the outcome, but know that the best outcome will come. We don't know where it's going to come, when it's going to come, but we're filling that battery with really good vibrations. And then we have Dr. King then devised an apparatus that could take that battery and send it out directly to a trouble zone. Or for war, if countries are at war and then there's some peace talks going on, well, then we start to send this concentrated energy out to that area. And we don't know where it will go to the most good, because we're trusting source to put it where it needs to go. And yeah, it's wonderful to hear you using the same methods, like the method, if you want, in practical application. Because when I speak to many of my friends and start to tell them about prayer energy, I see their eyes glaze over and they yawn and go make a cup of tea. But if they listen to this podcast, and of course I'm going to sit them down and anchor them to the seat, but when they listen to this podcast, I believe that they will understand it better, because it's coming from a more acceptable source. Like, got to protect my fruit, got to do it with no harm done. This is like it's like music to my ears. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, what I like too is, and I got this from they were scientists, but they're actually scientists in a spiritual church in America, right? They said, we want to find out if prayers work. And immediately, that we still have this division between the science and church, right? There's not a common ground. So either you belong here or you belong here. You can't mix and match it. So when they said, we want to find out if prayers work, they started doing experiments, and they used plants for that. So sometimes they stressed the plant. They had not enough water, too much salt, and not enough salt. And they sent the people into the room, and the people knew the problem. Some people had an idea what the problem is with the plant, right? So they knew this. Okay, this plant had, sorry. So this plant had, for example, too much salt, added to it. So they knew the problem, and they got sent in with the problem knowing. Then they had a group which they had no idea what the problem is, and they sent them in and says, just go in and pray. Now, guess which group, after years and years and years and double-blind study, which group did the most outcome, had the best results? The people who knew the problem or the people who did know the problem? The people who did not know the problem did much, much better than the people who knew the problem. And that's why I use in radionics as well. We also use that on the quantum broadcast. It's called Thy Will Be Done. Because this is basically, we don't know how to fix this. We just trust source. And so a lot of the times, a lot of farmers, what they do, in radionics, we have over 15,000 radio stations, right? So we can analyze anything from soils and toxins to environmental issues to whatever that is. So we can analyze and find out. And there's sometimes, like we just had a case too, they had a farmer who got some hail and he did not know where to start, you know. And so he just used the Thy Will Be Done, whatever is beneficial at this stage for my crop. And he dialed that into the system. And he said, of course, he did his physical work too. You know, he went and cleaned it up and gave water and sprayed on and all this stuff. But it showed us a picture 6 weeks later on his zucchini plants, and you could not see that there was a hailstorm. So the only thing he used is basically just whatever it needs to get my crop back up again is Thy Will Be Done. So he integrated that as well. And there's so many studies out there that, you know, people meditating and there's a book written from a lady in England. She did a lot of these research paper with meditation. And every time, you know, they did an intent or they just had meditation or prayers going to a certain area, they actually proved that it changed. So, for example, reducing crime rates in Washington, D.C. or doing this. So we're very, very powerful. But, you know, nobody tells you that. Because if we come into our God-given power, the world would be much different. We create our future. And so we have to stand truth. And I can see the last 4 or 5 years, what changed is, you know, these people sometimes they have a facade, but then they're not themselves. They don't live it what they say. And if this is changing now, this energy is pushing people so hard that and that's why they sometimes are having issues. You have to come into your power and be who you are. You can't be, you know, one person in the front and another person in the back. You have to stand 100% your truth. It might be uncomfortable. You might not like it, or people might not like what you stand for, but that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's just, you know, you have to do this. So if you don't like something, speak up. You don't need to insult people. You don't need to, make them feel bad, but it's just not my thing. You can tell them that. And so it's starting, the young kids are much more, you know, the new children which come into this earth right now, they're much more, they're not different whole, they're just different. They're coming to their power. And when you tell them something, you better back that up. You're not, you know, you don't tell them I will do it and you're not going to do it because that's it, you're done. And school teacher tell me that too. You know, these kids, if I tell them I'll do it and I'm not going to do it, they basically write me off. So we see that a lot right now, these kids coming through. And also probably the last 3-4 years, what we see a lot is we get parents and they're almost, they feel bad that when they're raising their child, that the child itself is, you know, it's actually very intuitive and very different. And when they're 3, 4, 5 years old, you know, they're talking about, I don't belong here, you know, and I want to die, I'm going to kill myself. And more, these children, when we check them, they're only here the first, the second, or the third time. So they've never been here on this planet. When they come down here, they don't know how this works. And suddenly they got put into school and it goes like, sit down, be quiet, and 1 and 1 is 2. Well, you know, I would argue if you have 1 snake and 1 rabbit, 1 and 1 is not 2. 1 and 1 is 1. But if you got a male rabbit and a female rabbit, 1 and 1 is maybe 7. So this is the difference at the moment right now. We have such a opportunity, these kids, these parents, you know, but they feel bad that they, you know, maybe are bad parents because they're talking this way, but it's not the parents. It's just this new energy is coming through, which, you know, pushes us to move and think and evolve better because they're bringing new consciousness onto this planet as well.
Yeah, the word congruency just shouts at you, doesn't it? We've got to be true to what we say. We've got to be congruent with our message. And we can't get away with just fluffing it and everybody accepting that we're fluffing it, because we played that just be polite, but realize that it's not really true. You know, we've made those allowances for, generations. I have a son that's autistic and high functioning autistic, and he is very much that he will question what I say, and I won't even realize that I've said something which doesn't really line up until he comes back to me. I mean, he's now coming 31, but he is right down the line. And I can see the benefit of that, because he's true. He might go on the wrong direction, but he's not deviating until, you know, he's physically stopped, and then he thinks, oh no, he shouldn't really headbutt that wall because I wanted to go through the gap. But then he will course correct, and that's really quite refreshing. But also distressing as a mum bringing up a small child in that way, because just didn't have the tools in my toolkit to deal with him. So I totally. I think I just must stand behind you, Heinz, and you say the words, and I just nod, because I just totally get what you're saying. It's really refreshing to hear it.
Yeah, and this stuff, which, you know, because I'm a practitioner, I work with radionics and dowsing. That's just stuff which we just came across. You know, it's not like, you know, somebody wrote a book and we go like, oh yeah, look, here it is. We just like, so why didn't it work? What's wrong? Where is the problem? Where is that root cause? Where do we need to go? And then we're finding, you know, oh, this is something new. That is something new. And, you know, unfortunately, the system didn't change yet. You know, when they have these kids, they just put them on drugs. You know, it says, oh, you know, you got this issue, but it's not. They're very, you know, they need a different way of teaching. They're just, they come into here and they go like, you know, so what is this? This is brand new. So what do we do here? You know, it's sitting in school, and they go, nah, that's not for me. And they just wiggle around and go because they want to be in nature. That's how they imagine to be. And then, you know, oh, you know, you have to quiet them down and fit them into the system. But it's falling apart. That system, that old system, has a shelf life, and that shelf life is over. So it's just a transition period. And then, but when you even look like 10, 15 years ago, you know, when you went out and you drove through the town and so, you never seen signs, you know, Bowen therapy or massage or acupuncture and Reiki. Now it's like, you can go through a little town and you go through, oh, they're doing Reiki, they're doing Bowen, they're doing this, they're doing, so it's coming. It's much more open, and we always say it needs to go quicker, but you know, everything has an evolution. So everything, it's growing, and it's here to stay.
Are you doing any operations for world peace with your equipment? If there's a crisis, or do you?
Yeah, we have a group. I mean, we do monthly Zoom meetings as well, and we put projects on. So we just had you know, world peace is like, it's just very far open, right? So in this case, we would just say whatever needs to be done for peace, because we don't know what is world peace. Where do we start, right? But we just had a lady, she came and she got asked by some people in Ghana because they had no water. They had a bore, but the water, it didn't come very, very slow, and it wasn't good quality, so they couldn't drink. So she asked us if we can help. And we usually say, we don't know, but we give it a go. And so I put that out to our group, and it says, okay, what can we do? And I used then the dowsing to clear water, to bring water in, right? And then we put it on radionics to basically that intent we had, that, you know, the water gets cleared, and we just followed the whole protocol. And it was 2 weeks later, we got an email back from in Ghana with some pictures, and the water cleared up. They had more water, but they also had rain. So finally they were able to fill their tanks and they got food again. And just last weekend we had a course, and the lady said she got another feedback. She said the water level increased, so there's more water in the bore, and the taste is gone. So they had this more bitter taste. So that we cleared that as well. So water is one of the best memories and best medium to work with. And so we use a lot of time when we actually make imprints from radionics, we make a copy, or we make imprints into water with radionics, that we can do that easily. And then, you can add that to your system, or add it to the water, into the cattle, or whatever that is. So we do projects like this where people come forward, or we just come up and says there's a project where we can, we're not telling you how it needs to be, but we just say, okay, this needs to happen. We want peace. How it's going to be, we don't know. And what the outcome, we don't know. But it's always this or something better for the benefit of all and detriment of none. So we're not harming anybody or, preferring anybody. It's all we hand it over to Source, and Source will figure it out. But somebody has to place the order.
Yeah. Well, that's great. You have such responsibility now, because with more power comes more responsibility. You have to send out more energy, teaching. I'm sure you're involved in that, and spreading the word with this book especially.
Yeah, no, the book was really interesting because we had a few radio interviews, and people they look at it, but it really, they can take their power back if they have the confidence and they go like, I'm going to do this, and just taking that first step and says, I can do it. I mean, if I can do it, living in Australia with an accent, everybody in the world can do it. So it's not a problem. But, when you have to trust that it yourself, if you have then that little voice comes back in your mind where it goes like, do you think you're good enough? Are you sure you can do this? You might have this at the beginning, but eventually you're going to step into your own power. So a lot of the times the problem we find from people is not, what they always think, this big issue that they describe. It's actually, they deserve to be healthy. They deserve to be happy. I love myself. I enjoy myself. A lot of these people don't have the core beliefs that they're actually good enough to do this. And they always conform to a certain standard. But if they say, hey, this is me and I can do it, and you don't need to run the marathon tomorrow, you just start a little bit, do a little bit, and then you go, this works, and that works, and this works. And then, if you have these miracles, you just live in it, that it works, then the world is open for you.
That's beautiful. Yeah, we have a great pendulum in the society as well. It's one of the most popular pendulums in England. Use it for the dowsing.
Yeah. This is a good tool, but again, I had one lady. She calls me up and she said, my friend, she just called me and says, can you take care of my children? She's in Adelaide, and she wants to kill herself. And she goes like, and she called me and says, can you do anything? So she sent me her name, and I got a picture of, she sent me a picture from her as well. So I use my pendulum for clearing. So I don't use it for yes and no much, because if you've asked, is this, let's say, for example, is this vitamin C good for me? You don't know if it's 2% or 100%, right? I put actually charts. I made charts up where I can say, okay, out of 100%, this yes is actually 90% or 2%. So I checked, and
He's a practical man, isn't he, Deborah? It's just incredibly practical.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, so I mean, it's all came out of experiences doing it. And so she sent me all this information. I checked her energy, and it was very, very low. So the first thing I do, I cleared her energies in the house, and I cleared the energies on her, and then I put her on radionics, to hold these energies. And when she got there half an hour later, the friend goes like, oh, what are you doing here? She says, well, didn't you want to kill yourself? Oh, no, it's all good. So these energies work so quickly, right?
And all
so
remotely
we fix
as
that
well, yeah.
all remotely. And we do this all over the world, And then the lady, started working with me for 2 months. And what we found out later, she lived in a drug house, and that drug house had a lot of detrimental energies. And you see, I said detrimental energies because I don't use negative and positive, because the earth has a grid, right? So we know we have Hartmann lines, which are, again, they're positive, negative, and neutral. So again, we need both negative and positive. Then we got Hartmann lines, we got Curry lines, and in England they have a lot of ley lines. They got the Mary Magdalene lines, the Michael lines, and all these energy lines are out there, right? And what did I want to say? Oh, because I don't use negative and positive, I use detrimental or beneficial. That's why I don't use that. And 2 months in, I got a text from her. She says, and she did really well. She started, to going back to work, and her kids are happy again. And the text says, I can't work with you anymore. Sorry. My priest told me this is demonic. And it's like, you're feeling better. You look better. You have a job again and all this stuff. And that has nothing to do with what we do demonic. We're helping people, right? For the good of all, for the benefit of, on detriment of none. But we still have that stigma. And, in England, the Witchcraft Act only got basically removed 1957. So that's not so far ago until, there was still a Witchcraft Act. 1.5 years later, guess what happens? The same friend called me and says, can you work on her because she has the same issues again? Yeah. So that's the thing. These energies, we're surrounded by them. We're like a fish in the water. We don't even know we have all these energies around us, and some are beneficial and we need them. We need these Hartmann lines, Curry lines, because that's information traveling on them. And they're not just two-dimensional, they're going up and down and everywhere. And but some of these can be detrimental, and we have more and more man-made energies which we have to work with, but we also have spirit energies. We have earth energies and human energies. So the pile of these detrimental energies is piling up more and more and more. So we need to do more work of clearing them. And I would recommend that everybody always has a clear house, because you want to come into a house, there's no energies which can affect you. And Europe, especially, with underground water, they do a much better job checking, especially in Switzerland. They check the house before they build any houses. They check if there's underground water. Because 1932, there was a town in Germany who had a very, very high cancer rate. And so they had a diviner going around and actually dowsing all the water lines and the gas lines. So after 7 months, when he had his chart, he had it graded between 1 to 7, it's like low density, but 7 to 14. He put it on a chart, and then they went to the medical authorities and they overlaid the people who died of cancer. 95% of people died of cancer who were living over underground water.
Wow.
So, that's why.
Case.
Yeah, and at 1932, they had no Wi-Fi, EMF, and, all that stuff yet. So the town next to it in Germany had hardly any cancer, and then there was hardly any underground water. Yeah.
Well,
so I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This is information overload. I think people are just going to have to. We have first heard you on Coast to Coast, so people can go and listen there. And I also see you run courses on your website. So maybe how can people? I mean, some people are really going to be want to tune into you more. How can they do that?
I teach the courses usually here in Australia one by one, because and I only have 16 people on a dowsing course because it's a hands-on course.
So it's in person or it's on Zoom?
No, on Zoom, because even when people hold the pendulum, it's different. If you have experienced people, we can do that on Zoom. But usually we start here, and because we go outside, we do water dowsing.
It's an in-person course, yeah.
It's an in-person course because I teach people, for example, sometimes when we have water tables coming up, how to move water underground, so we can move streams away from the house, right? Or we neutralize it. So this is the key, because we have farmers, when they were growing, I learned that a few years ago, probably 10 years ago, when we had so much water, suddenly the water table rose and the crop started to fail. And the crop didn't fail all over the place. There was only like 2 or 3 rows, straight lines. So what happens is the water table came up, or the stream from the top came up and raised the water level. So what we did, we took the stream on the top and moved it on the side, and then the crop recovered. So we were able to move water into bores or enhance the bore when we move water in. And that needs to be hands-on a little bit. That's not just...
Yeah, you need to be in person. But where can people find your book?
It's probably the best way on the webpage.
Okay.
universalenergyclearing.com. And there's information there as well. Yeah.
Well, this has been fantastic. I think you just have to come on again and give us another update, because there's been a lot for it to download. For me and Deborah, especially.
And I think that we have a colleague in Brisbane, because you're in the Brisbane area, aren't you, Heinz?
Yeah, I'm 2 hours north of Brisbane.
Yeah. Well, Megan and Rod Middleton are actually part of the Ethereal Society, and they run the group there. And I know that Megan would be fascinated to touch base with you. She's an avid dowser, so watch this space for your inbox. If you see Megan Middleton, you know that she's been sent from Deborah.
Okay, that's good.
She would she'd just suck you up. She'll love you.
All right.
Oh, good.
Well, because, we're from Switzerland originally, and when we go back home, we did courses. We did one course in Germany and one course in Switzerland where somebody organized it. So if somebody is out there who want to organize a course, we travel as well. Not tomorrow, but we've just, and pick up farmers. I was teaching farmers in the States and in Canada about radionics. So, there's we travel and enjoy life as well. Oh, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, thanks so much for joining us. And if people want to hear more about the Ethereal Society, then go to ethereus.org. Thanks very much.
All right. Thanks very much, Jack and Deborah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Heinz.
All right. Good night.